And this is the meeting of the Battle Road Scenic Byway Committee on May 25th, 2023. And I will take a roll call now. Oh, maybe we don't have. We have Concord, we have the park, we have Lexington, but we don't have a quorum yet. I know that Clarissa and Paul might not be coming. Has anyone heard anything from Lincoln? You're muted, Anne. You're usually telling us.
I can check. Just give me a minute.
Okay. I wonder how long you wait for members. Richard, were you ever able to open those documents that I sent, that Chris had sent along? You're muted now.
No, I wasn't. They came through as links. I don't know if I have problems with my end, but did anybody else able to open them okay?
Maybe people haven't had a lot of time to look at them. These were the attachments that Chris had sent along from a National Scenic Byway Coordinators meeting with FHWA and all the states, all the states and all the DOTs. It was really interesting to see that long list.
I can send them again if anyone's having trouble looking at them, but they are PDFs. So I'm not sure if you need a particular program or application to view them.
You know, it's funny. I noticed that and I didn't have any trouble opening them, and I checked on what I sent to everybody else, and I could, because I copied myself, and I could open them. But I know in the past I've had trouble, maybe somewhere along the line I got the converter.
So in my email, they came as links to your email account rather than as PDFs.
What do you mean a link to my email account?
It goes to like your Gmail.
My whole Gmail?
No, it just says like for when I try to open them, it says Gmail temporary error. So for some reason, it wasn't the actual PDF itself.
Oh, interesting. Oh, I didn't see that. Maybe because it was me. Okay. Okay. I don't know what that means or how that happened.
It's not obvious to me I ever had them.
I'm sorry.
It's not obvious to me that I ever received them.
I thought you should have been on my list.
Well, it's okay.
I don't usually forget you.
Good. I wouldn't mind.
Well, it was just very interesting. It was the meeting of all these people from all over the United States, states and tribal entities, and it was quite a collection of good information and a PowerPoint presentation that spoke directly to the grant. And maybe Chris and I can speak to what happened at that meeting in terms of just the general numbers about number of applications, amount requested, amount awarded, number of projects awarded. It stood out to me as a former Iowan that Iowa got 2 grants. so if Ann doesn't come back, well, I'll give her another minute, and then maybe Chris, we can at least, oh, there she is.
I'm here. So I just heard that George Parsons has a conflict. I'm not sure which town he's from.
Okay, well, that means we don't have a quorum. So now what?
I
We
think
do.
you still meet, but you cannot.
We have 4 members.
Well, we don't have the member from Arlington, and we talked about this before, and it seemed correct.
We only need.
We had 5 voting members, so we need. We
need 4.
We need 4. Sorry. Okay. All right. Sorry. Thank you. I was just thinking we couldn't proceed without the town at all. But we do have, because we have the park and the other three, so, okay. Moving right along, I would like to flip number 2 and number 3 on the agenda so that we can accommodate Chris's schedule today and go right into what we were gonna do anyway. And that's give a little review of what that meeting was. Chris, do you want me to start, or would you like to say, why don't you say some words first about that meeting? I thought it was really-
Sure. Yeah, so the awards were announced just a few weeks ago, and there were 166 applications requesting about $130 million in funding. So about 125 parties were left a little bit disappointed. So FHWA did offer to have 30-minute debrief meetings with a few individuals that represented each organization. So Nancy joined, as well as Paul and myself, and I think Miranda was there too. It was a good overview. They basically categorized each application as being highly qualified, qualified, or underqualified. This application did hit a couple highly qualified marks, but due to other elements, it was overall categorized in the qualified ranking. We are sorry, so many notes. They weren't able to share any materials
I know.
of the raw feedback with us yet. They need to work with our legal team to make sure that they can share those notes. We're hoping they can, just because I think it'll be a lot more helpful in developing another application when additional funding opportunity comes online, hopefully sometime in the early summer.
We've heard that before.
Yeah.
Early fall.
Yeah, I'm holding my breath on that one, but if we can see anything this year, I think it would be great, especially in time for the 250th anniversary a few years down the road.
And that's $20 million presumably, correct?
Yes, at least hopefully a couple $1 million more. And I know they're going to change some of the criteria, whereas for the last round, I think they favored rural entities and projects above $500,000, which kind of squeezed out the number of actual applications they were able to fund. But at this point in time, like, we don't really have any solid understanding of what this new NOFO is going to include. Nancy, feel free to jump in and fill in any gaps.
What impressed me a lot was that they talked about the criteria, which are I think in the grant application, they're actually called goals. And they stated that the strongest applications do have those goals or criteria very clearly addressed. I think we might pay more attention to that next time around. It was, what was good was we had a great match, non-federal match, thanks to the parks contributions to that application. And that seemed to be a downfall for a lot of applicants. And in my notes show, I'm also reading now from the summary notes that were in those attachments, that there's a lot of review that we could be doing now of maybe, even though the new application is going to have some differences, there are some similarities in the law and also probably in the format, because FHWA will still be looking to maximize the impact of the byways and to look for that match with their own goals and strategies going forward. So I thought it was very good to be able to meet the team. And the PowerPoint presentation actually has pictures and contact information for the National Scenic Byway program. So that was that.
They did have a lot of good things to say. They definitely praised the spirit of the application. But the two weaknesses they did hone in on were performance measures in evaluating success for like post-project implementation. And I haven't gone back to read the application, but that's, as Nancy said, two things to consider moving forward. I know we don't have the NOFO now, and up in the air when we might receive that that notice, but two things to kind of build upon and consider now moving forward. So we're prepared and organized to develop a draft application once that funding opportunity arises.
Okay, and Miranda's responsibilities are going to include liaison with all federal programs, is that correct?
Yes.
Including
Yes,
the byway program.
yes, that's correct.
Okay, that's great. Okay, thanks for coming.
Sure. Yeah, she's balancing meetings at the moment. But Miranda, if you're here, you're welcome to flash on the screen and introduce yourself. Say hello.
Yeah, I don't see her from here.
Yeah. Mhm.
I see you in a dark box. Your schedule's a little busy today.
Yeah.
Hi, good morning. I can't
Oh,
be
I'm
on
here.
camera right now, but nice to meet everybody.
Hi, Miranda. Good to see you.
Or not see you.
Or not see you. Yeah. Well, something showed up.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Um,
yeah.
Does anybody have any specific questions that maybe we could go back to FHWA with? I'm very interested in getting more information off the formal communication channel, maybe. They're just concerned about disclosing personal information, which I think a phone call might not have to do that. So maybe they could just be a little more specific about strengths and weaknesses. Like Chris said, it was a good application, but others were more fully responsive to the criteria. Richard, I see you, but did you have something to say?
No,
Also, you went to full screen.
yeah. So on the Scenic Byway website, it does say that they are preparing the 2023 grant application, NOFO, and as soon as it's ready, they'll publish it.
Correct. That's a good website to look at, by the way. There was early information on that about the grant award.
And they
there
also
was
said they were going to have a new website, and they still don't.
well, anyway, okay. Any other questions? And if not, we could continue the discussion about 250th plans. Richard, do you know why you're full screen for me?
No, I'm not on mine.
Oh, okay. And maybe knows.
Oh, no, so I did have a couple of questions. I know that our sort of internal criticism of the grant application was that, it wasn't there wasn't sort of coherent goals for the group as a unit, and that each town had separate goals. So I wonder, whether taking another look at the plan for the Battle Road Scenic Byway would help us develop goals sort of as a unit for the byway.
Right.
Oh,
And whether that was that way that, I mean, that is something that I've been hearing internally, but is that something that came up in the federal review?
I don't think that they did bring that up. They might not know the state of our individual town goals or our goals, so they may not have picked up on that at all. And I didn't hear anybody say anything about that. Not that it's not an important thing for us to talk about under other business. And the perennial item being, what do we want to do with the MOU?
If I could add to that in response to you, Anne, it was tough to take notes. They were talking very fast. I do have two bullets that sort of said, almost like made it seem like the net that was cast was a little bit too wide. From what I wrote, it says multiple project elements made it difficult to assume they could be achieved within the project timeline.
Oh, that's right.
I thought I had something else written here. Again, it was a little challenging to really, while the meeting was very helpful, the feedback is something that would really bolster this, especially before the next round of funding comes out.
Okay, thanks.
It's funny because some people here had looked at the discrete projects. That may be what Ann's and others are getting at. They're very discrete projects sometimes. And maybe it's not that clear how they would get accomplished, even though the towns thought they could get their projects accomplished. Okay. Okay.
Sorry, one more thing. Ann and Nancy, I did share the materials from the federal byway team once more, if you want to distribute those to folks if they didn't have a chance to look at them. But if anyone doesn't have a copy of the actual application from last year on file, I think it'd be good to kind of read that tangentially to the materials to brush up on it. I know I haven't read it since June. So that might kind of help the wheels turn as well, thinking about the next opportunity.
I do have a copy of your message back to me on what you actually submitted to Federal Highways. So
Okay. Oh, good. Is that a package of all the materials? Hopefully.
yeah, yeah, and hopefully they all open.
Okay. Well, let me know if they don't. I do still have.
I will. I'll try that today. I hope today. Today is really busy. We're losing our chief of planning and land management in the next couple of days, and there's a send off for her. Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming, and thanks for arranging that. Okay, so 250th plans. Are there any particular updates? Beth is not here from Concord, and she's the person who would be most clear on the progress. And I don't know. Simone, I see your hands up.
Yeah, so just a quick update. So the 250th committees for Lexington, Lincoln, and Concord are going to be meeting for a work session on June 1st here in Concord, which is a really good opportunity to sort of dive a little further in. The focus of the meeting will be looking at Patriots Day weekend itself for 2025. So there'll be some more to report on after that meeting.
That's great. I think Beth isn't here, and I've had a little bit of a conversation with her about this, and maybe other people have opinions too, but it seems that the towns are all more or less stood up for this effort. And Arlington now has an appointment to the state committee. So they're going to be more dialed into that. But it seems that, Beth has pulled together a similar team, but without Arlington, I think, for the trolley. So there's a lot of communication going on among those folks and among people who are involved in the towns in the 250th event. So maybe the role for the Byway Committee will be more or less the endorsement of other projects. And
I think, if we look at what we said our goals are, part of it is talking about celebrating the 250th. But it seems that even though some of the people who are going to the June 1st meeting are representing their own towns like Concord or the Park, it seems that someone like maybe you should be there to represent the Battle Road Byway.
I cannot take on one more meeting.
Okay.
So I think that's the case with a lot of people. I'm in communication with Patrice often at Freedom's Way, but I think maybe the town should take it upon themselves to coordinate their efforts, and maybe folks from the Byway Committee are the same people who end up on the 250th committee sometimes, right? I don't know what.
Yes, there is overlap. Like, for example, for the town of Concord, there's the executive committee and they have multiple subcommittees. And I know the town of Lexington is structured in a similar way in regards to the work with different focuses, marketing, events, fundraising, public safety. So
subcommittees.
Yes. So there are definitely a lot of participants. And I do think there is some overlap with folks that also participate in this committee.
Okay, thank you, Simone. I'm just gonna say something really stupid. And you can definitely correct me because we have Lexington, we have Concord, we have the national park. We do not have Lincoln or Lexington members.
And we do.
No, we do.
Where?
We have
Jennifer
Lincoln.
is on.
I'm here.
Where's Lincoln?
Lincoln.
Where's Lincoln? Why am I not seeing them, I wonder? I usually see people on a side panel. Who's here? Who's here? Oh, Jennifer. I see you now on when I hit the participants list, but I don't see you in the side view. Oh, sorry. Okay, we are. Thank you. Okay, Sarah's hand is raised.
Yes, I just would like to, I'll just report on Lincoln, but then, because I'm on the committee for Lincoln. Richard's comment struck me because as we heard about some of the potential critiques of the application, having the byway represented in some way, shape, or form, I mean, the critique from what I'm hearing is that we were disparate parts as opposed to one entity that was advocating for one main goal, a mission statement that was clear. And this, to me, is also another example of yet more disparate parts without the byway having its own voice clear. And if we're going forward for applications, it would seem to me figuring out some way of making the byway clearly an entity that's advocating in unity, all the parts are advocating in unity, might be important. That's just a commentary on what I've heard this morning. I just am reporting that Lincoln has had its first meeting last week, and that Kim Bodner, select Kim Bodner, has been leading the charge, and she's a force of nature. So.
As are you. So good to know. That's good to know. Thanks, Sarah. Well, what do others think about ways to, I take your point, Sarah, that the byway committee shouldn't be invisible and we should have some role. I wonder if there's any suggestion for liaison with these other committees. We could have a list of the committee, the people who are on the committees in the towns, and maybe we could see where some of that overlap is.
Just an asterisk. I mean, this is a PR thing I'm saying, that there needs to be visible unity as opposed to these disparate parts.
Yeah, well, we would always speak as the, the Battle Road Scenic Byway Committee.
Correct. But apparently in the application, there was perhaps a perception of individual parts as opposed to the whole. So that's just what I've heard this morning.
No, I think I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
So here's an opportunity to course correct, and in some visible way, start presenting the byway as this independent, unified unit.
That's been a target. That's been a target for a long time. So we'll keep at it. Richard, do you have a clear committee structure at this point in time and with subcommittees and whatnot?
Well, we have no subcommittees currently, is my understanding, and we just have our committee. But one of the things that we told Federal Highway, when we applied to be a national, we said that in the next 5 years, we were going to focus on the 250th, and that the 4 towns will be closely coordinating with the towns and the park on activities and celebrations.
The problem is we don't have staff and we don't have money, so we're not really functioning as a programming element. So I'd like to know you think we should be, what should we be pursuing together? I mean, I know what we said, but there, you know, our MOU and the corridor management plan, I think, assume a broader, more populated committee.
Right, because we said we're gonna have a stakeholders committee.
I
And
know.
we also said that we were going to have our celebration of the national designation. And we're still don't have that yet.
And that was, when should that have happened? It was quite a while ago.
Right.
It was quite a while ago. And then it's hard for me to imagine, but I'm not the event planner. A celebration of something happened in, do you remember the exact date? I don't remember the date. It's over a year easily ago. So
Yep. Yeah, we got caught up on side issues.
yeah, there are a lot of side issues. I think what I will do is, Chris, do you have some thought?
No, I'm sorry, I have nothing to add, but Miranda and I do have a 10:30 meeting, so we're.
Oh,
good.
okay, okay.
But
Thank you.
please send the meeting notices and hopefully we'll have more stuff to share in the coming
Yeah.
weeks.
Okay, us too. Thank
All right.
you.
Enjoy the long weekend, everyone.
Bye, you too.
Bye.
What I'd like to do is make this committee aware of what our subcommittees are and maybe who the members are. I think Beth Williams, who may or may not see her appointment extended to the Battle Road Scenic Byway Committee, would have that close at hand. So that's something I think would be a good idea to share. And if other towns, and I think the park, it's primarily Simone and Jennifer, is that right?
Yes.
That would be working on this, yeah. And so maybe if we could at least know who's doing what, under what kind of structure, we could begin to pull some ideas together. I think we have to get, maybe Patrice Tedesco could come to our next meeting, or I could talk with her and send a report out of what they're doing. Or I'm sure their website is up to date, so probably a lot of what they're doing might be visible there as well.
So when we say we have no money because A, we didn't get the grant, and B, we have not asked the towns to support us like they have in the past. And part of that is that we didn't have a work plan to say, we intend over this next year to do X. You know, we need to have $5,000 or some amount from the towns. That's what we've done in the past.
What was that allocation? Do you remember? It was not a large allocation.
No,
I do remember what you're talking
Yeah.
about, and I know planning in Concord has earmarked money in the past, but was never
so
requested.
the website that we have, Freedom's Way, gave us a grant, and
Right.
they funded that website.
Right.
So we need to have a work plan, and we need to say, here's what we intend to do, and then we can ask for money. If we don't have a work plan and we don't have a program, then we can't.
I agree. I don't see a drive to do that. I don't feel competent to develop a new governance strategy for this committee. And it has been in past suggested that maybe MAPC could help facilitate a conversation like that. I just don't see the energy for it here. Am I wrong? I think the question is really, what do we want to be? And how do we get there? Simone?
So it'd be helpful for me, since obviously I wasn't here at the beginning, in terms of the formation and the development of the memorandum of agreement. How was it situated? How was it structured? How was it initiated? It would just be helpful to me to understand how we started, and then sort of at this point, as we kind of reflect and sort of do to the next phase.
I think Richard and Sarah both, and myself, we were part of that.
And Jean,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, where's Jean? There she is. Oh, Jean, there you. And Jean, yep, for sure. And Clarissa was, I don't have a clear memory. I don't have a clear memory of how the specific elements of that MOU were finalized. But I know maybe Jean and Richard and Sarah were more involved in that at the later stages. Sarah, your hand's up.
yes, and a bit of what happened in the grant application is a bit of a reflection of the beginnings of the committee. There was a degree of resistance to finding common ground. And there was Lincoln in particular, led by me, was somewhat cantankerous about maintaining autonomy and not so much buying into the whole, because we were not interested in marketing and all those aspects, which are bookend towns. It's more of their thing. We've come a long way since, and I certainly, in my work with HATS, was really embracing the concept of collaboration and moving forward as a unit, as an entity. And the park became such a critical element in all of this. And I had not been fully aware of the importance of all that. So the beginnings were rough. And it was MAPC that helped navigate and pushed the formation and the collaboration. My biggest contribution, I think, was that I was really adamant that we expand the definition to include the technology that we called it the road of revolution.
Right.
I thought that enhanced, the reality of our region and of the Battle Road, but its core being was as the Battle Road. So that's my memory, and your idea of going back to MAPC and revisiting and recommitting to common goals, because once the 250th is gone, we still have the Battle Road. We still have obligations and commitments to the whole, and I think we have an obligation. Yes, we may be stretched thin right now, but we shouldn't just go back into our respective holes because there's something bigger happening. We should figure out a way, and maybe it is inviting MAPC back in to have one or two conversations, and maybe there's something that we're all missing because we're so down in the weeds. And we've been down in the weeds with the road project, which started as a simple repaving project and exploded into something else. And when it exploded into something else, I saw everyone going into their bunkers. And good, they were being attentive to their own individual agendas, lost the vision of the whole, and lost the vision of the commitment to the Battle Road.
Yeah.
Enough.
Richard? Oh, sorry. Thanks, Sarah. Richard.
Yeah, so if I can add a little to it. So the impetus initially was the threats from him.
Yeah.
And the realization that what was occurring along the Battle Road, the 1950 study said anything on the Battle Road east of Route 128 had simply lost any resemblance of anything, and we should just forget about it. And so that's why the park starts where it starts. So that was part of it. And
Wait. What do you mean that's where the park started?
in terms of the boundaries?
You mean the current not,
The current national.
yeah.
National
All
Historical
right,
Park.
all right.
So
Just-
it was said that, nothing east of 128 should
Yeah,
be
yeah.
part of the park because it lost all its fabric.
Thank you. That's the important part of the park.
And so part of what we talked about was, we had hats, which was Lexington, Lincoln, Concord, and Bedford to
Mhm.
worry about Hanscom things. But we wanted to concentrate on the Battle Road because that was what connected us. And that's why we wanted Arlington in it, because they had a major part. We didn't want to include Concord, Cambridge, because that would have, we would have been overwhelmed. And if Markey got hold of it, he would have said, don't forget Paul Revere Road through Malden and Medford, and you'd have to have that as part of it. So we had these strands, and through MAPC, we managed to get a grant to do the corridor management plan with no structure, and said, once we get the management plan, then we'll figure out, who's going to be responsible for administering it and putting it through. And we talked at the time, maybe a 501c3, maybe the towns can do something, maybe it might be part of Freedom's Way or MAPC. And so after the management plan was completed, MAPC convened a group from the 4 towns to talk about possible structures. And Lincoln selectmen were very vociferous about what they wanted including in the MOU. And that's what we ended up with. But the goal and the charge to the committee is our committee is responsible to implement the corridor management plan. That's its only goal. And so if you look at the plan, there's quite a bit of programming that needs to be done. That is our responsibility to work through the towns, through MassDOT, through private hands, whatever. And that's why we have the core group and why we needed the stakeholder group, because as we can see, we've become too town oriented and not enough Battle Road oriented. And the stakeholder group hopefully will get us out of that mentality of 4 towns in the park.
One of the things it was suggested we do for this meeting, but it's going to be incomplete, is to do what Richard's actually already done and identified potential stakeholders. And it wouldn't be that hard to do. But my issue with that is that it's a part of the MOU and maybe not. I don't know that we want to be picking and choosing which parts of an outdated MOU we want to be following. So I think there's something more fundamental there at bottom. Does it make sense to at least explore what facilitation by somebody from MAPC might look like? They are planners, so they do plan things, not always to the contentment of the towns that they work for. But does that seem to be a good idea? I know there's other hands up. Everybody's hands up. Should we just have a conversation that's a roundabout and try not to get distracted on this? The question is about MAPC. Anne hasn't said much. Can I ask her what she wants to say?
Sure. I was just wondering, when the corridor management plan was created, did Freedom's Way exist? I'm so new here that it did. And why were they not a part of it? And, I'm just asking questions.
Yeah, no, it's a good question.
Because maybe some of this work that is described in the corridor management plan is being done by Freedom's Way and doesn't necessarily need to be done by this group. Just a question.
That's interesting what that relationship should be. And Patrice really has her her life for Freedom's Way planned out pretty well. But it's a very good question, and we've talked about, you know, how these two entities could work together more. Simone, is the park closely communicating with Patrice on a regular basis?
We are, especially in relate to planning for the 250th, because they're a natural partner for us, and their collaboration with so many communities makes it a pretty beneficial.
Something like 45, right?
Yeah, just over 40 communities are technically within the heritage area. So I actually had a meeting with Patrice earlier this week to talk 250th programming. So
an interesting distinction between the two is that Freedom's Way is federally funded up in some arrangement that I don't remember. Is it a matching, or do they just heritage areas just get money?
So each heritage area is different based on the legislation. So they do get appropriations that the National Park Service serves as the distributor for those appropriations. Each heritage area gets a different amount, and then the heritage area themselves establish the grant program that will distribute those funds accordingly. So each heritage area is a little different. But like in the case for Freedom's Way, they manage the funding that they get, and their grants do require a match. I believe it's a 2-to-1 match that can be either funds or volunteer hours, etc.
So that's actually a big difference. Sarah?
Richard probably wants to weigh in, because as I recall, you were very involved in the early days of Freedom's Way, were you not?
So I was one of the founders.
Yeah, so I will defer to Richard to discuss Freedom's Way. My point was just that Freedom's Way is such a large entity, as Simone has pointed out, and our focus was more discreet and to be more powerful and more nimble with the Battle Road and the park at the core, and then these other activities, functions, etc., to be supportive of that. And as I recall, Lexington and Concord were very interested in how it might enhance, their economic development plans. Lincoln, much less so. That was our crankiness. But what I would see in Freedom's Way is the focus on the park and the Battle Road getting lost in this much larger agenda.
So, obviously, as a founder and past president of Freedom's Way, I've been in contact with them, and I think when I talked to Patrice, when we first applied for a grant, the idea was, the corridor consisted of 4 towns in the park, and at some point we may wish to expand the corridor further out towards Freedom Way, as it might be. But part of, I think, what Patrice's thoughts were, and my thoughts were, that let's try and get the 4 towns on a good footing, have a website, have a communication plan, and with Freedom's Way about either expanding the byway or helping them institute other scenic byways within Freedom's Way. So we had talked about that kind of collaboration.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, where does that leave us? I had one concrete suggestion. I'm going to follow through with it, and I'm going to send around a list of our committees and maybe the chairs, and hope to get that information from other towns And the park, I think I know, but if there are other people we should know about, Simone, that'd be great too. And the second is, I think just Chris, was it Chris? Chris, the new guy from Lincoln, said that it would be very helpful for him to be able to go back himself and review the MOU and the other foundational documents. So maybe that's what we should do in the interim.
Nancy, I was going to ask you and others to, what are the shortcomings of the current MOU? What would you like to see changed? And maybe if everybody individually looked at that, I mean, to go and reconstruct something when maybe it's a matter of tweaking or doing nothing. I mean, what are the shortfalls of the current MOU that you?
That's Paul's suggestion at our last meeting was that we would all come prepared to have reviewed the MOU among our towns and among the park, and to review it and summarize sort of what our thinking was about that MOU, including, you know, what's wrong with it, what's needed, what seems to be okay. My biggest frustration is that we are very aspirational. The corridor management plan is extremely aspirational. It assumes a much larger entity, I think, in terms of getting the goals and the action steps underway. Stakeholder group might help, but I think Teresa's struck on a model of grants that seems to expand her work, the work of Freedom's Way, while involving the people who are members of that. So that's something that we could again try to commit to do at our next meeting. And I would suggest that we meet on June 22nd. Oh, in the meantime, if this group seems in accord, I will investigate a little bit how MAPC might be involved. Does that seem to make sense? Sense of the meeting?
Simone has her hand up.
Yeah, I see.
Thank you. Yeah, so I guess just two things kind of ahead of that meeting, because I might not be able to attend on June 22nd. But Sarah, would it be helpful if each of us had the chance to sort of submit that information ahead of the meeting, so that way we have it to review before the discussion? And then I think there would be a benefit, to your point, Nancy, about the MAPC. I apologize because I have to jump to another meeting because I'm leading it at 11, so I have to
Yeah.
take a quick break. But if that would be helpful, Sarah, to have us each sort of pull our thoughts together of the current MOU or things that we think that maybe could be beneficial for a tweak or anything of that sort ahead of the meeting, it might make the discussion more fruitful.
I think that's a really good idea. I will communicate back with folks that weren't here, and if people could go back to the other people in their organizations, and to do as was suggested, to review the MOU more specifically and think hard about its assets and liabilities going forward.
So with respect to MAPC, so one of the reasons why we were able to get the grant and so forth is that Barbara Lucas, who is a Lexington resident, was in charge of transportation at MAPC.
Oh, that's right.
Was instrumental in getting
remember.
the original grant and so forth. She obviously retired, and the only other scenic byway in the MAPC area is the one in Essex County. I don't think MAPC looks at scenic byways as part of their portfolio necessarily. And they do have these grant applications for towns to apply for grants to do things, and that's if we wanted MAPC to do that, we should fill out one of those applications. The other thing is that maybe an entity like Freedom's Way may be a more appropriate one at this stage than MAPC in terms of getting an outside voice to look at our structure.
I can talk to Patrice as well as look into the MAPC,
Yep.
what they do now and how they work. They were going to be the fiscal agent for the grant.
Right.
Should we have been successful with the grant, so, but that's, anyway, different folks, so I can look into that.
Yep.
Okay. Is there any other comment on that for now? Probably right now. I had under other business, a couple of things. Jennifer, I seem to have the incorrect address for not for Andrew, for Craig Nicholson.
For his email address.
Yeah.
Let me see.
I saw somewhere too, and I think maybe he might not have.
Maybe that's why he didn't come.
Yeah, maybe he didn't get.
So it's Craig, Craig Nicholson, Nicholson at ajax.com.
Yeah, that's what I had. Something happened. Okay.
Okay.
I'll double check that. Thank you. But in terms of the member roster, there are those changes. We have those two from Lincoln that are new. We don't have the fill in the blanks part that says what their term appointment is, what their appointment term is, and who was the appointing authority. I think I remember someone in Lincoln saying they were appointed by the select board.
Yes, they're appointed by the select board for a term of
Could you
2
send
years.
Could you send Richard a note and he'll put it on
Yes.
the roster? Concord has 2 vacancies potentially. It's not clear if Beth is going to be renewed for this committee. Any other changes? I don't think so. None that I'm aware of right now. So that was one we've talked about. Richard sent around to everybody a summary of important things in the corridor management plan that he said he was going to do. So that's something to pay attention to. It's it gives sort of a good sense of where we are, what we aspire to be. I had a question. It came up in passing about a celebration. Maybe it's not a question just for this smaller group of us, but do we want to have a celebration in light of where we are, or do we want to wait until we're successful with the next grant? I think we're well positioned, and I don't know, but in the meantime, I've been thinking about the resource stewardship piece, and I know the signage is also more byway wide, but people should think about whether or not they're going to adjust their thinking for a new grant.
So part of it is that we obviously submitted a grant saying, here are things on the byway that we think need to be done. We don't have the grant and we can't apply for several more months. But the question is, are some of the things that were in the grant application things that we should be doing, and we should be asking either the towns or Freedom's Way for grant money?
Mhm.
And I think the signage program is kind of critical at this point.
I think the survey is, because we don't have a plan yet for where the signs are proposed, and the town
Right.
haven't reviewed those. So I
Exactly.
know Concord's feeling about signs is we probably have too many. So I know that there's one particular sign that's meant to attach to current signposts in town. So that was a good foresight.
Signage might be helpful, actually, going into the 250th. It could complement what's being planned. So perhaps that can be wrapped into discussions with the 250th group, the regional 250th group.
Well, the towns do have money. Has Lincoln received any money yet from state money?
I'm not sure. I'd have to ask Sarah. I don't know if you know.
Yeah, we did. And off the top of my head, I can't remember what it was, but we
Okay.
did.
Lexington and Concord, I think both did.
Yeah, we all did.
And I think Arlington did, and it might, Richard and Jean, was it in the neighborhood of 200,000?
I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, yeah, we all got the same.
That was
And
my
so my point is signage is an opportunity for the Battle Road to capture something that will last beyond the 250th. It will serve the 250th celebration, but it will also last beyond.
Well,
And the,
And that requires a survey? Is that what you're suggesting?
you have to know where you're gonna put them to know
Got
how
it.
many to order. And
so what they did in the Essex Heritage area when they did this signage is they had MassDOT travel the byway with local DPW and selectmen to look at locations where signs can be eliminated, where signs need to be, and so forth. And so I think we have a structure for that to occur.
yeah, I think that's Sheila has often mentioned signs that could be eliminated.
Mhm.
But that's a little bit of work. But it's not rocket science, probably.
It's what the work is simply the coordinating, the
plan.
alignment between MassDOT and DPW. Is
No,
that?
the plan for where the signs would go, not necessarily who gets to ride in the car and pick the spot.
Yeah, but that seems to be, sort of the cleaning up housework that should be done in anticipation of the 250th anyway.
Yeah,
If we're gonna, it would give us something to do, and you might even get something done.
yeah. Thank you, Jean.
Concord's DPW guy who's supervisor of roads and highways and grounds undertook to replace all the signposts in town with brand new shiny black ones. So there's consistency of straight upright signs instead of rusted old things. So
Oh, you
that
lost
was,
all the character.
that was yeah. It was a great improvement, but I wonder, I noticed, but anyway, whatever. So
But what we want to have happen is not to have 4 sets of signage that each town approves.
Yes,
We should have a unified kind of signage so that everybody signs on to the same kinds of signs.
well, Concord has a copy of what, Concord DPW has a copy of what the Byway developed in terms of their signage program, but there were options for different color schemes as well, same colors, but different arrangement and also for different sizes. So I think there's an overwhelming a continuation of the basics in that sign program. And the sign program you think is okay still? And maybe people don't know what that is. Maybe we can get that up on the Battle Road Scenic Byway website.
So the signage that we paid for through our grant, the only sticking point at this time is whether MassDOT will try to put a border around them.
They would have that problem, or they would do that? They're the ones that would decide that?
Yes.
Okay, interesting. All right. I thought some of them had a border. They had a white border, right? Anyway, I'll see if we
could,
can.
could someone take responsibility for pursuing the sign program? And could you just assign someone the responsibility of pursuing the sign program and then come back and report to people?
So Mary Timiner is the MassDOT person who is the MassDOT sign person. So they have a sign person.
but we don't. So we should, what Sarah's asking me to do is appoint somebody. I'm looking for a volunteer.
I will be willing to follow up from what I've done in the past.
You've got them.
Well, yeah.
You
Okay.
know, Rich, if I could suggest, Richard, you should get together with Craig Nicholson, because he does have a lot of planning.
I'm sorry, who is that?
The new Lincoln member.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Craig Nicholson is the
Yep.
new representative on the
Yep.
planning board, and he has a lot of planning experience both
Okay.
in Boston and with things like signage and place, you know. So a phone call to him, a cup of
Good.
coffee would be invaluable. And he's, you know, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and a lot younger than us, a lot more energy.
Good.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other new business today? Public comment? Anybody out there? Sarah, you're done?
Minister without portfolio.
That's fine. That's fine. You've got a lot of experience and background and to be respected. Any member updates? There's Arlington's not here, so then it would be Concord and Beth's not here. And most of what's going on in Concord has to do with transitioning in our Division of Planning and Land Management in Ann's work group. And lots and lots of work going on in the subcommittees for the 250th. It's busy. It's too busy, but it's very busy. So Lexington,
So we now officially
Center.
have our designated cultural designation. And we're going to be starting construction around the Battle Green to make it more friendly.
and so much work has been completed on the center. It's really impressive. It's really
Beautiful.
And the trees are coming out now. Are they leafing out?
Yeah, almost. You know, every now and then you see one that's not exactly leafing out and you say, oh, it hasn't, it's good. It's sort of like the old days.
Oh, no. That was quite a project, quite a project. And the park, I think Simone had to leave, so I know that they're also really busy with putting to good use the $27 million that they got for landscapes and structural rehab, and also the 250th is going to be a big deal for the park. So, okay, if there's nothing else, I think it's within my power to declare that the meeting's adjourned. Any other thoughts to the contrary? Okay, it's 11:05 and the meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.